Hello, I'm Glenn McGuinness, and welcome to Outburst. This week, we're asking about the link between summer jobs and the Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
We're a country full of many faiths. We need to embrace it.
But I'm skeptical as well too of denying groups the opportunity for some to get summer grants based on having a very hardcore pro-life position.
Canada stands for equality. I think everyone should get the opportunity to get the grants.
But first, we're in Vancouver, Calgary, and Ottawa, talking about pipelines, how governments are handling the process, and how the public is perceiving it.
We're being penalized because we can't get it to Tidewater, and I think we need those pipelines.
It's creating a constitutional challenge nationally.
It's being seen as evil, and I don't necessarily think it is.
The Kinder Morgan Trans Mountain Pipeline has been the source of deep division between two of Canada's western provinces and the federal party they have in common. Depending on who you ask, the stakes could include billions of dollars to thousands of jobs to the very future of Canada's ecosystem and our climate change goals. There are political risks too. The pipeline was built back in 1953 and connects Edmonton, Alberta to BC's west coast. It's the only connection between the oil sands and the coast where the final product will be shipped off to international markets. An expansion now means 12 new pump stations, 19 new tanks, 3 new marine berths, 980 kilometers of additional pipeline, most of it twinning the old one to Burnaby, BC, and an additional 890,000 barrels per day. It's a $7.4 billion construction project, but many questions still remain. So we visited two cities where this issue is top of mind, Vancouver and Calgary, with this question. What do you think the public doesn't fully understand about the Trans Mountain Pipeline project?
Why it's a big deal, how it relates to them. I think it seems like it's one of those things that if you work in oil and gas or you're concerned about the environment, that's pretty much the only thing, that's the only way it'll affect you. But I think for most people, it doesn't seem like it's relevant to them, or they don't really understand why it's a big deal.
Well, they don't understand that we are bringing the world's most environmentally friendly oil that's developed in the most environmentally friendly way to the world market. If we don't take it to the world market, they'll just buy it from other places and still burn it. The pollution comes from people burning oil, not from people producing oil.
That is critical for our economic well-being, not just for Alberta, but for the whole country.
I think just the facts, just being told the truth minus agenda from any side so that people can have a decent understanding of what's actually going on and who this affects and impacts.
That it's not evil, that it's not going to ruin our world. I mean, in my personal opinion, I think it's important to take advantage of the resources we have, and if there's a safer way to do it, I feel like they should educate, read as much as they can. I feel like it's just it's being seen as evil, and I don't necessarily think it is.
I think outside of Alberta, I just feel sometimes Canada has that crab in the bucket type of mentality where they see that we have excess and maybe they just would like to pull us down even though we are helping share the wealth.
The cost of running this province and other provinces, they don't have a clue. It costs a huge amount of money. You got to raise that money somewhere. And oil is one of our natural resources, so we're going to exploit it, like it or not.
I have a great faith that the majority of people generally make good decisions, and the polls show that the majority of people are supportive of this, just over 50%.
People might not be totally aware of the kind of jobs that might be going on or how the whole process might be, the construction process might be taking place. I feel like the public doesn't know a lot of what's going to be going on, but I think the governments also don't really know what's going to be happening. So I think there's kind of, people are saying what wants to happen, but as far as, how things are actually going to play out in real life, I don't think we're totally prepared for that sort of thing.
Well, to my understanding, it's actually an existing pipeline that's looking to be upgraded, and that it's actually not a new pipeline. So that was another thing that I had heard. I don't know if that's correct. And I think that the other thing is that I think that there is a real pushback to sort of go into clean energies right now, but these things take time, and I think that the transition needs to be a timely one, where we can all win as Canadians if we just continue to work together on these things and not try to get these environmental initiatives, these new green initiatives overnight. Transitions aren't going to happen overnight.
I think there's a lot of things on both sides that people generally don't understand. I think that in the Globe and Mail 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was a really well-balanced article on myths and facts on the pipeline. And I think more unbiased information needs to be shared on both sides. There are some challenges for sure about global warming, but the pipeline may not solve that. And it's become lightning rod for all kinds of issues that can't be solved through a pipeline.
I think they don't quite know what all the benefits are going to be, in terms of if we don't get it, it's not just gas that's going to be more expensive. I think it's going to be everything that's going to be more expensive.
I think they've been misled by many so-called environmentalists who are often foreign paid and just attempting to get themselves in the limelight. And I just can't comprehend it, how people can be so misguided.
How many types of pipelines are there? 1, 2, or 4?
4.
2. I'm gonna go with 4.
That's what my gut's telling me, but I'm gonna go with 2, just to be different.
I'm gonna say 4.
4.
2.
4, definitely. Yep, there are 4 types of pipelines.
The answer is 4?
Yep.
Great. There are 4 different types of pipelines. Oil and natural gas are moved within the operator's facility by gathering lines and feeder lines. Transmission pipelines bring the product to market, and distribution lines carry natural gas to homes and businesses. The federal government promises to use public money to back Kinder Morgan, indemnifying it from any potential losses due to the opposition of the BC government and some municipalities in the province. In fact, the government says it will compensate any backers who face any type of financial loss. The project was approved back in 2016, and since then the federal government has made a concerted effort to get BC on board, as well as listening to the concerns of some Indigenous critics. We sent our cameras out to get a sense from Canadians as to why Ottawa is so determined to see this through. Our question: why do you think the federal government is committed to building this pipeline despite opposition in BC?
Political dollars, political campaigns are built on industry, and industry in this country has been oil and gas resource based. So in some ways, industry sometimes puts our political leaders in place, interpreted in that way by donation dollars and whatnot, fundraising. So, in some ways, I don't think that Trudeau is between a rock and a hard place, because he can't really alienate his contributors and alienate the people that placed him there in some ways. But also, he is an environmentalist, and he is someone that is keenly aware, I believe, for the environmental impacts of this type of project.
I think it's all just money. It comes all down to money. Whatever's good to make the money that helps them earn their money, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not a real good advocate for the government, I'll tell you.
From a government point of view, I think it's votes. But, the fact is, no matter what they say, we need it, we need the money, and we need to go through with this project. Although I don't like the fact that if something goes wrong, I think that the company or whoever's running the oil needs to be held accountable for every dime of a cleanup.
I think in the way that global economies work today, I think every country is a lot more concerned about exports to foreign investors, especially here in BC, compared to working in the country, working together. We see this all over the world now.
I think it's a question of priorities. I mean, the way that it's being portrayed a lot of the time is economic versus environmental priorities, so I suppose that would be my answer.
I think they need votes everywhere else, so they gotta do what they gotta do, right? So.
Well, I mean, the obvious. It's a huge opportunity for revenue for this province, especially. But I think it's also a power move in some ways as well for the government to kind of establish a little bit more of a structure as well. So, yeah.
Well, I guess the premise that it's a safer means of transporting oil around. I mean, after that train derailment, you'd think it seems only natural that they're looking for another way to get it across, get it where it needs to go, and use our own means to do it.
Because it's the right thing to do. They're doing it for the right reasons. They're doing it for the best for the world and best for Canada. And I hope they can make it happen.
I think it all boils down to votes. And, the BC voter base is larger than ours. And so they do have to hear them out as well.
Relations, I think, with the states probably, money, job creation, helping the economy.
Oh, because they know it's critical to our economic future. I think they understand that. But I think at the same time they're trying to appease other groups in order to maintain their popularity.
While public opinion remains strong and varied, the political cost for those involved could be high as well. BC Premier John Horgan is looking for a constitutional reference to help delay the process. And Alberta Premier Rachel Notley says if this is not resolved soon, she'll be turning off the taps and encouraging the province to build the pipeline itself. Federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh says the approval process is rigged and that the pipeline shouldn't be built at all. But Notley says the pipeline is the lifeblood of Canada and Alberta. Notley will be skipping a meeting of Western premiers to help focus on the issue. The Trudeau government has remained adamant this project will move forward and have been hitting the road, spreading their message to the media and to Canadians. So we took this question to you. How well has the government handled the pipeline process with Canadians and Kinder Morgan?
Well, I think in my opinion, I'm a little bit disappointed with the idea of our tax dollars in British Columbia going towards suits levied against Alberta. This idea of provinces infighting doesn't seem very, I don't know. I think that there's better places for us to put our dollar bills, the ones that we have, yeah.
I think that it's creating a constitutional challenge nationally. This is not just a BC issue, it's an issue across Canada because it is one that invokes the Constitution. So in terms of how well the government has handled it, I'm not sure I can say good or bad. What I can say is that I'm not sure the court cases are in the best interest of Canada as a whole.
The BC government has followed it up terribly. They have confused the issue. They have misled most of the populace, although not all. I hear surveys that over 50% of BC residents are in favor of the pipeline. And this is one of the reasons that I'm in favor, is that I feel that we need to minimize the oil that is coming in our railways. Those tankers, and I mean the railway cars, are coming down our critical environmentally critical riverbeds right close to them, and that's carrying the oil. And if we don't build the pipeline, it's only going to extend. We're going to have more and more of it.
Well, I feel that the government has done a fairly good job. Prime Minister Trudeau has aggressively supported it, and I'm glad to see that we're moving ahead.
Well, they've handled it well. But the fact being they've had oil coming and going out of Vancouver for 30 or 40 years, possibly longer. So I don't think the pipeline being underground is going to be that much of a threat. And God knows we need the money.
There hasn't been a lot of agreement between like Alberta, Trudeau, and the BC NDP. So I think there's been a lot of kind of disconnect, and I don't think they've really been listening to the public as much as they should be. Just kind of an overall poor job, I should say, as far as like federal and provincial government.
There seems to be a lot of back to one side or to the other, so I don't know. I guess they're not really communicating their message well enough.
Provincial, they're very undecided now. It started out under the Liberals, now we have NDP. So they don't know what to do, in my opinion.
I think they've done a pretty terrible job, actually. I think they're all playing games, all sides, and just need to get it done.
I know that there's two very different opinions. It's a down economy, so job creation is a big deal, but also there's a lot of environmental concerns, and so I don't know how you're going to kind of come together with those two. It seems like no matter what you do, you're always going to be someone's going to be unhappy. But I think there isn't a lot of information given by the government. I think it seems like it's going to be one of those things that's just kind of kept under wraps, whether it's being done quietly or quickly or whatever it is. But I just don't think it's as public as maybe it could be.
I think they're missing the whole point of the pipeline, because what benefits Alberta will benefit the rest of Canada as well.
Not very well so far. They need to make sure it goes ahead in Canada and the world's best interest.
I don't think that they've been forceful enough. I think that they needed to push harder to get things moving than they have.
Well, they're not handling it super well with Kinder Morgan. Like, they need to be, Kinder Morgan is a company, and they need to be more open about what's actually going on, because for them to be confused is not good. For them to say, we're shutting down until you guys can come up with a solution is not good. So they need to be more open with the contracting company. But with Canadians, I think they're, again, doing it as best as they can. It's not a great situation, and so for them to be in it is, and it's not really something that they've ever dealt with before, as far as I know. So for them to kind of be feeling through it they're doing as best as they can.
I think given the circumstances, they're handling it the best that they can. I think there's a lot of opinions coming from many different perspectives, and it's a process. But I think for right now, they're doing a fairly good job.
I feel like it's not a very good job. I think we need to deal with the Indigenous people first, because they were here first, and then and listen to what they have to say before it becomes a matter of provinces.
Okay. Anything you would like to add?
Yes, I'd say it's definitely an intersectional issue, when it comes to of course, Indigenous people and the environment and things like that. There's a lot of, in my opinion anyway, people claiming that they care, but then kind of it's more just to look, demonstrate, and it's also something that's not necessarily at the forefront of the media for people to have readily accessible information and knowledge about the issue to make an informed decision. And yeah, I don't think it's really a good decision. So I think we need to be making sure that the conversation is more accessible to a wide variety of people, so that they can figure out if they support it or not, and maybe do something if they don't.
I think one of the issues, at least for the people in BC, is the environmental issues. And Alberta, for Alberta, it's an economic issue. So how do you combine the economics with the environment? And the government, for them, it's a political issue. How many votes can I get in this province versus how many can I get in the other? And politically speaking, the Liberals have never done well in BC. And they kind of want to do that. In Alberta, I don't know, they kind of give up the ghost on them.
Ma'am?
Yeah, I agree.
You don't have anything to add?
No, well, I'm not too sure about the handling. I think what I would like to see is a government that is offering a lot of alternative types of energy sources at the same time, parallel. Not just have oil, but you got to promote a lot more of the hydro, the wind, sun. I think we need a lot of that parallel. People may accept the oil pipeline if they see that oh, okay, we're moving this way, possibly 25% of this, 25% of that. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, but
That's what I'd like to see.
for them to turn around and to basically guarantee to any company that comes in that we're going to pay any indemnity that happens to raise the cost, I mean, that's a tough way to run a business, because I'll start up a business if they're going to cover my losses. That'll be great.
In my opinion, they've done a great job, especially the current government. I think they've invested a lot in developing the pipelines, especially with the current Prime Minister, Mr. Trudeau. He's done a great job, in my opinion. Yeah.
So you think they're doing well with the process?
I guess so, yeah.
It's been a tricky situation trying to balance provincial and federal powers in this situation. I think they've done as well as they could, considering all the various parties involved here, as well as the agreements given by the previous government. So I think all in all, not so bad.
You know what, I think our federal government needs to stand up and step in and make what happens, what they ordered to happen, which they already cleared and said it was okay. They need to mediate the process, and they need to allow the BC government and the Alberta government to talk better instead of like trying to pull rogue cards, or I'm not going to buy your wine, or I'm not going to cut off your pipeline. I think when you have disputes like this, especially at the border level, that's why we have a federal government to come in and try to mediate it, and I don't think they're doing enough.
You know, the federal government's between a rock and a hard place. And I think they've tried to find the right balance between, you know, sort of green policies and supporting pipelines. And it's not just because, I'm not just saying that because I'm from Saskatchewan and I think it's something that's required. It's a resource that we have in this country. We're being penalized because we can't get it to tidewater. And I think we need those pipelines, and I support the government's position. You know, I guess the question is, should they be using a bigger hammer? And I don't. I think it's through diplomacy. That's the true answer, and it just takes longer.
In what province was Canada's first oil pipeline built? Ontario, Alberta, or Saskatchewan?
I'm going to go with Alberta, B. Is that B?
I was going to say the same, Alberta.
Ontario.
Alberta.
Oh, I'd say Saskatchewan.
Well, I would say Alberta, I think.
Ontario?
It is Ontario. Very good. In 1862, Canada's first oil pipeline was built. It connected Ontario's Petrolia oil field to Sarnia. The Canada Summer Jobs Program is an initiative put forth by the federal government to provide employers with wage subsidies so they can hire students for the summer. But last fall, the federal government added a values attestation to the program, which means those looking for monies would have to confirm their core values would respect the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. This would include reproductive rights as well as sexual orientation or gender identity. So we took this question to Canadians. Should summer job grants be tied to support for the Charter of Rights and Freedoms?
Faith-based organizations, if they want public funding, they need to comply to public citizenship requirements. And in this country, citizenship means equality. And unfortunately, their doctrines can't trump citizenship. Somebody has to make the choice, I think, and so I think that the people of this country have spoken up loud and clear. I feel that we want an equal and diverse society, and therefore, if you want government funding, you need to comply with the majority.
I don't think so. I think you need to show that what you are doing is providing a service to young people and enabling them to get out into the world, in the workforce, or whatever they're doing. So I think as long as you have a clear explanation of why you're seeking grant money, I don't think faith should have an issue. We're a country full of many faiths. We need to embrace it.
Well, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms should be a precursor to any of our activities, but it should not take precedence over everything else.
this is an issue that I think people can be reasonably expected to disagree. I think people have people have convictions about it. I do also. I side very much with those persons who feel that this should be allowed.
We have certain human rights in this country, and funding organizations that don't support that is not in the best interest of the country or the government. I think when we start talking about funding summer jobs because there's some political controversy, that might be a little bit different.
It shouldn't be ideology based. I think everyone should, Canada stands for equality. I think everyone should get the opportunity to get the grants.
It's something that I've had mixed feelings about. On the one hand, I am definitely personally pro-choice, but I'm skeptical as well too of denying groups the opportunity for some to get summer grants based on having a very hardcore pro-life position. I'm not sure that's necessarily a positive step, but at the same time too, I do have very strong pro-choice feelings, and I do understand too that governments that everything is political in some level. So whether you make the decision or not, it is still a very political act. So,
and really, what it is this is an agreed upon sense of rules. So if you sign the sheet of paper saying I agree upon these rules for everyone, yes. I don't exactly know if it's limiting in that sense, but I think if everybody has to jump through the same hoop, then that's universal.
Yeah, because the rights, whatever is granted through that charter is universal, and that should be followed by the governments, whoever is in power.
Yeah, like if they're willing to work, let them work. It shouldn't be based on anything.
When was the Charter of Rights and Freedoms enacted? 1955, 1969, 1982.
1982? 82?
55. 1982.
Yeah, I'll go with 1982.
I think I'm going to go with 1982. Yep.
69?
82.
It's 1982.
Yeah, that's what I said.
The Charter of Rights and Freedoms was signed into law by Queen Elizabeth II on April 17, 1982. That's all for this episode of Outburst. Like what you see? Well, you can watch more new episodes on our website at www.cpac.ca, as well as on our YouTube channel. You can find lots more great material there, and you can weigh in on the issues that matter to you the most. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram simply by searching for CPAC, or on Twitter at CPAC_TV. I'm Glenn McGuinness, and on behalf of all my colleagues at the Cable Public Affairs channel, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Outburst.